takes is faith and trust, and just a little bit of pixie dust. Here we go!
Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our channel, Paws On Animation.
And today we're covering yet another Disney classic, Peter Pan.
Now this is another story that's been adapted time and time again, and even Disney themselves has done a remake. But it seems like this original classic remains one of the most memorable ones. But
before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to some future podcasts and Moto Paws videos.
Yes, and thank you for joining us today. As well as subscribing, sharing our videos, commenting, liking, and so much more. We appreciate you so much.
Yes.
So Peter Pan, this classic, is a 1953 animated adventure fantasy film.
Yes.
And it was actually produced a year before in 1952 and released by RKO Radio Pictures. And it's based on J.M. Barrie's 1904 play Peter Pan, or The Boy Who Wouldn't Grow Up.
Yes. And that one itself is also based off the book, I think, if I got it in the right order. Because sometimes I think the book came after the play or the other way around.
J.M. Barrie's play 1904.
Right.
Peter Pan, which means the book also was written around the same time.
All right. Okay, I want to make sure. And this is one we actually want to revisit for a long time. We've never covered this movie on our channel, but at one point we did see it, but it had been so long we kind of forgot about it. And another thing also piqued our interest, besides us going back to all these old classic Disney films, is that the character appeared in a very disrespectful version of him in the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie. And we wanted to see, like, okay, just how accurate is it? Scary accurate, unfortunately. And this is the one that has pretty much started the ball rolling for all these different Peter Pan adaptations that have come throughout the years.
Now, as great as this movie is, we want to let you know up front that there is a portion of this film, a large portion, probably 15 to 20 minutes, that is no longer appropriate for modern audiences.
Yes.
That involves the depiction of a culture group in a way that is disrespectful. So
Right.
We're not going to cover that part of the movie. Therefore, this podcast will be a little shorter since we're not going to cover that.
Right.
And before you get back, I want to let you know, this movie is based on the 1904 play and the 1911 novel that was originally titled Peter and Wendy.
Right. There we go. Alright, so many versions of the story, you can kind of get a little mixed up unless you are
But that was the
thoroughly
original. And then
right.
the Peter Pan novel came after the Peter and Wendy book.
Right. So, yeah, there's so much to this already before you can get started with these other adaptations. And like we said, there's so many. And Disney has done actually 2 different adaptations later on. They did one in Once Upon a Time,
Yes.
where it was a little more accurate to Peter being a bit scary in the book, where he was just a flat-out villain, and they kept accurate to that. Then they had a live-action movie that was so boring, we don't remember half of what happened in it.
Yeah. Now, Once Upon a Time, for those of you not familiar, it was a series that aired on Fox.
Yeah.
Before they got Fox. And it was based on a town that was filled with storybook characters, but they didn't know they were storybook characters, and then they didn't know how they got there.
Right.
And the first few seasons were fantastic.
Right.
And then, as usual, went down the toilet.
Right.
So this movie had 3 directors, and this particular version of the story had 8 writers.
Wow, back when they actually attributed something.
And it was edited by Donald Halliday. The budget was $4 million, and it grossed over $87.5 million in the U.S. and Canada. It has a running time, as you say, of the magic number, 77 minutes.
Yep. So it was one of those short and sweet movies. And another thing in here is that, well, I guess tell you the basis of the story if you already know the story or seen the movie or something. You have the darling children who are being left home for the night because the parents are going out on the town, I guess, on their date night. And the oldest is Wendy, and she watches over her 2 younger brothers.
She's the mother.
Yes, yes, she acts like the mother, and it said it's her last night of being a kid. because the next day she's going to some type of school where she learned to be a proper lady, and she's supposed to put away all of the childish things. So the story itself is sort of like a story of growing up, and it's not.
I'm sorry, I thought I was saying all the school.
Yes, I think it came from. Yes, they were referencing this. Only it's terrible. And it sort of becomes this journey in a way when you read the original book and this, of where Wendy has to eventually learn to grow up, but she doesn't necessarily grow up, which I think I would have liked to see develop more in this film, and I so far haven't seen that done in other adaptations. So she kind of is holding on to the childhood still a little bit longer, but you can tell the way she speaks, and she's very in charge for being young, that she's already on her way to growing up pretty fast. And she has Peter's shadow who tells the mom, don't close the window, he might come back and come for her. And she's like, what are you talking about?
And she also could have been the inspiration for Katara in Avatar The Last Airbender, because she acts a lot like Wendy, and I didn't think of that until you were saying that.
Yes, that's true. Good point. So then, after the children go to sleep and the dog's outside, the dog's really the caretaker, is hilarious. Peter finally comes to the story, which doesn't really take long, and that's when all this magic adventure begins. And I think the thing I laugh at the most is that, Peter's kind of a jerk a lot of the times, and it translated that to horror all the time. It's like, look, I know he's not really all that great, but do we have to just dwindle him down to just being psycho, stabby?
And two things that's funny about that is, one, sometimes those expressions on his face, I'm like, look, he looks evil.
Why?
A couple times.
Yeah, like that one looked bad.
And the second thing is, he's like the original fanboy crush.
Yes,
everywhere.
It's hilarious.
Because still, all these decades later,
yes,
women, girls, people,
Sylveon,
everyone's crushing on him.
You were
and then you get the Star Boy.
Okay, you know how to bring this up.
Of
Peter Pan.
Of course, we had to bring it up
because we read that was one of the major inspirations of the character, mixed between Peter Pan and Genie. So Bill Schwab knew what he was doing, using Peter Pan, because Peter Pan seems to be a decades old guy to the crush on.
And when you look at the original design, you should be seeing now, he's dressed like Peter Pan, but more regally.
Right.
So he has the cape.
Right.
And that makes him stand out.
Right.
If you remove the cape and he doesn't have on the funny hat. He's dressed like Peter Pan.
Right. So part of us was just laughing at that, saying like, oh, we're seeing the original, and we could definitely tell where they're getting the ideas from for the design.
So we get our introduction here to the magical use of pixie dust. You've seen other fairy tales where they didn't use fairy dust or pixie dust to fly, but in here they get to fly with it.
And think happy thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little hard now, but
and they get whisked away to Neverland, and they get to have all types of imaginative fun.
Yes.
Even though, again, sometimes Peter is a little stuck up
and troublemaker.
Yeah.
Right. And it's funny because he's supposed to be this sort of brat character, but there was one point in the movie, I have to bring this up, one point in the movie where he doesn't like girls because he doesn't grow up or anything.
Right.
But I think it's hilarious.
But when he likes him.
Right. And there's one point in here when she's talking to him, just kind of going on and on and on. She is just talking, sort of rambling a bit. And I kid you not, both Peter and Mama at the same time said, this girl talks too much. And at the same exact time, he said, the girl talks too much. And Mama said, she talks too much. And it's like, well, I don't think Peter is really far off now. And those will be like, oh, he's a stupid boy. No, the boy's right sometimes. I'm sorry. He was right, and it's like, Wendy, you will stop talking for 5 seconds.
She did it. It's like she's going on and on. And then we also got an introduction to Tinkerbell, who was not nice in this movie
No.
at all. She couldn't stand Wendy.
Oh, she was not nice.
She was so in love with Peter, and just like everyone else, that she was willing to have her die and be killed.
And it's like, and it's not people making things up or looking too into it.
She tried to do it herself,
right? And to add to
mermaids.
The mermaids tried to do it, and it's even in the original story and the play. So it isn't something Disney added or something we're looking too into. This is canon, and they've kept this just about each version she's featured in. And it's funny because they try to do books now where, oh no, Tinker and Wendy can be besties. Why?
No.
Did you not like this?
No.
Why is there such a push for them to be friends?
Never, because they're both girls, I guess, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Two things to stand out about Tinkerbell. One, she has an altered version of Peter's outfit on.
Yeah, when you think about it, she does.
And the second is, in every review we've watched and guys we've talked to personally and online, they all crush on Tinkerbell.
Right, so it's like you had a 2-for-1 special.
Yes.
All the girls crushed on Peter, all the guys crushed on Tinkerbell. And it's like, Disney, you kind of missed out on doing this again, like several times.
So they had this grand array of adventure and fun, and then they had to return home.
Yes.
But before that, they ended up meeting
Captain Hook. Who's the one a lot of people sympathize over, which was hilarious because it's like this poor guy is just losing his mind trying to battle this kid.
And so he ties them up to the mast. I think that's correct.
Oh, that's correct.
And then they have to escape so they can return home. And that's unfortunate as far as we can go with what happens in this
right,
movie.
and mean Lost Boys, yeah.
Yes. So they return home, and there's a happy ending.
Right.
And as far as we know, Peter's never supposed to meet them again. Well, guess what?
The sequel!
Titled Return to Neverland was released in 2002,
right.
and a series of direct-to-DVD prequels focusing on Tinkerbell
yeah,
began
for
in
some
2008,
reason.
as well as the live-action adaptation of the film released on Disney Plus,
which was boring,
in 2023, which we haven't covered yet.
Yeah, but
if you guys want to hear us talk about it, let us know.
Yeah,
in the comments.
I guess we have to. Yeah.
So I want to note that this was the final Disney animated feature released through RKO before Disney founded his own distribution company. It also was entered into the 1953 Film Festival. Also, was the last film that Disney's 9-0mm worked on together as directing animators.
Yes. Aw. Well, it seems like there's a lot of history to this movie more than just, the movie itself. The people
Absolutely.
who worked on it, the people who voiced in it, the legacy it's had for Disney and just for Peter Pan's story in general, because like we said, there's so many Peter Pan stories. And a lot of the times when they do these adaptations, yes, there are some nods to the Disney film, and other times they try to stray so far away that you don't try to compare it to Disney. But there are times you just can't help it. Not because you want to put down the new one, but because that's so embedded into pop culture now. It's one of the go-to versions of the story. And it's inspired so many people, just as books, or TV shows, plays, movies, cartoons, and Starboy and things, everything. And heck, it's even inspired me because I've actually had told this on Twitter and somewhere else. They actually have an idea to do like a Peter Pan trilogy. Like, why don't you see the story from the time he becomes, like, I guess these are the origins because they kind of tell a little bit of it in the original books. Tell a story of how he came to Neverland, how he became, I guess, this quote-unquote hero and everything, wanted to write that story. And for me, my idea would be if you didn't animate him one, I'll probably make Peter slightly older, like a little older than 12, but don't make him an adult because people ran away with that and I don't want to talk about it. And I would choose Kaji Tang to voice him.
Oh, yes.
That would be a cool thing to do.
Okay, calm down. Yes, that would be perfect. So, also want to point out that Disney Fairies is a series of children's books published by Random House, which was based on this story, featuring Tinkerbell and her friends. Also, as we know, there's popularized in Disneyland, Walt Disney World, and other Disneyland places that still exist. There have been ice shows based on this story, video games,
oh my gosh,
board games, musicals,
everything.
As we know, sequels and live action adaptations.
I think there's so much Peter Pan content, it's its own fandom now.
Definitely. So as always, let's quickly give a shout out to the voice cast. You have Bobby Driscoll as Peter Pan, a cocky and adventurous leader of the Lost Boys.
Okay.
And we've mentioned his treatment after his popularity went down after this movie. He became an adult, which is a sad story. But we're glad to give him praise for his performance in this movie. We had Catherine Beaumont as Wendy Darling. Hans Conried is Captain Hook, and he was a pretty big actor during that time. Bill Thompson is Mr. Smee. Heather Angel is Mary Darling. Paul Collins is John Darling. Tommy Lusk is Michael Darling. We also had some other actors appearing as the Lost Boys: Stuffy Singer, Johnny McGovern, Robert Ellis, and Jeffrey Silver, providing the voices. The mermaids were voiced by Margaret Carey, Karen Kester, and June Forway.
Ooh, okay.
And
pretty
the
cool.
film was narrated by Tom Conway, not Tim.
Tom Conway, yeah.
Yes.
Like, I wonder if they're related.
Possibly, yeah. So, this is definitely one of those movies that has left its mark, left a legacy, and somehow, some way, every decade manages to be relevant and a part of pop culture still.
Yes.
And we could have had our current version with Starboy in the original Wish concept that would have made him relevant for another 100 years.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, for both
the two of
him
them
and
together,
both of them.
It would have been fantastic. But alas, that's not what we got. So if you've seen the original 1953 Peter Pan movie, let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't, it's available on Disney Plus to watch. If you haven't seen it, it is a fun watch.
Yes.
It's very short. Go ahead, try it out, come back and tell us what you think.
Right. And if you haven't already, subscribe for updates and weekly videos for your anime series, anime shows, and all things animation.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us. As usual, we really appreciate you so much. You are what keep us going, and as always, you are
special. Thank you so much for watching Rascal Entertainment.
And Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
I have the strangest feeling that I've seen that ship before, a long time ago, when I was very young.